My name is Rose Mitchell, and I'm 70 years old. Last night on Christmas Eve, I found my daughter Emily shivering outside in 32-degree weather, wearing nothing but a thin blouse while her husband's family laughed and toasted champagne by the fireplace inside. No blanket, no coat, just my baby girl abandoned in the freezing cold by her own family. The same people who smiled at our wedding. The same people who promised to love her. I kicked that door open holding my daughter in my arms, and what I said next made every single person in that room go silent. What would you do if you found your daughter like this? Keep reading. This gets intense. I stepped out of the taxi at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. My heavy boots sank into the thick snow outside Emily's house in the Meadow Creek neighborhood. The icy wind slapped my face so hard I thought my skin would peel off. After 40 years as a taekwondo coach, I thought I was tough enough for anything. The sweltering heat of the dojo, the harshest Idaho winters. But this cold made me shiver in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Through the big picture window, I could see warm, golden light spilling out from the living room. I heard jingle bells playing from a Bluetooth speaker. Emily's favorite song when she was little. I smiled, thinking about surprising her. Imagining her face lighting up when her mom showed up unannounced. I hadn't seen my daughter in 6 months. 6 months of phone calls that grew shorter and shorter. 6 months of her voice sounding more and more distant. More tired. More broken. But I told myself it was just stress. Just adjusting to married life. Just the normal struggles of being a young wife. How stupid I was. How blind. I stepped closer to peek inside, and what I saw made my blood run cold. A long table draped in bright red cloth stretched across the living room loaded with traditional Christmas dishes. Golden roasted turkey, steaming cornbread stuffing, cranberry salad glistening with apple chunks and raisins, wine glasses glinting under the chandelier. The Whitlock family was gathered in full. Mr. Harold Whitlock Ryan's father sitting at the head of the table with that air of authority judges always carry. Mrs. Evelyn Whitlock holding her wine glass with a smug smile painted across her bright red lips. Ryan's sister Abigail was there too, with her 2 young kids running around laughing. They were all raising their glasses, toasting around the crackling fireplace. But where was Emily? I frowned, straining to see further inside. I pictured her in the kitchen, maybe pulling a pie from the oven, standing by the tree arranging presents, anywhere but outside in this cold. Then I heard it. A faint whimper coming from the porch. I turned, and my heart stopped completely. Under the dim porch light, next to a snow-covered poinsettia planter, Emily was curled up in an old wooden chair. She wore only a thin white blouse. Her frail shoulders shook uncontrollably. Her messy brown hair stuck to her forehead, damp from melted snow. Her lips were blue. Actually blue. I ran to her. My heart pounded like a war drum in my chest. "Emily!" I shouted, and my voice broke with panic. I yanked off my coaching jacket and wrapped it around her with trembling hands. When I touched her arm, it was ice cold, like touching a corpse. Like there was no warmth left in her body at all. Emily lifted her face. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her pale lips barely moved. "Mom," she whispered so faint the word almost dissolved into the wind. Then she collapsed against my shoulder. I hugged her tightly, feeling her whole body shake like a bird caught in a storm. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." I tried to sound calm, but tears burned my eyes. I pulled an extra sweater from my bag and wrapped it around her, trying to share whatever warmth I had left. I lifted her in my arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her soaked slippers fell into the snow, leaving a wet trail. I held her close, feeling her weak breath against my neck. For the first time in my life, I wanted to kill someone, actually kill them. And from inside the house, the laughter kept going. Careless, cruel, mocking. I heard Ryan's deep voice boasting about something. The whole table erupted in more laughter. Wine glasses clinked like distant eerie music. They were happy, cozy by the fire. While my daughter, my own flesh and blood, trembled outside in the cold like she didn't deserve to exist in that house. Like she was garbage they'd thrown out with the trash. 3 hours earlier, I was at the Boise airport, still sweaty from coaching. I dragged my old suitcase through the terminal, so excited I could hardly stand still. I was going to surprise Emily on Christmas Eve. My heart raced, imagining her face when I showed up unannounced. She'd always been my light. Ever since she was a little girl, clinging to my legs, begging for one more bedtime story. Growing into a sweet young woman whose smile could melt away my toughest days. But my job took me everywhere. Seattle, national tournaments, always stealing moments with Emily between competitions. Every time I left, I told myself just one more tournament, then I'll spend more time with her. And now, I was finally here. Ready for a Christmas reunion I was sure would make us both happy. I sat in the airport waiting area and pulled out my phone. I wanted to hear her voice. Make sure she was home before I showed up. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. Each tone tightened the knot in my chest. No answer. I frowned. Maybe she was busy preparing dinner. I called again. Still nothing. Then a third time. Always the same. Silence. A cold dread settled in my stomach, spreading like ink on paper. I sent a text. Mom's on your way. You home? I stared at the screen, waiting for the little blue check mark. Nothing came. I tried to shake off the bad feeling. She probably left her phone somewhere. Or maybe she was decorating the Christmas tree like she did every year with those little glass ornaments I'd given her. The ones shaped like snowflakes. But deep down, something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. The kind of wrong that makes your hands shake even when you're not cold. I thought back to our last phone call 2 weeks ago. Emily's voice had sounded so tired, so flat. I'm fine, Mom, she'd said when I asked how she was doing. Just busy with the holidays. But there was something in her tone, something hollow, like she was reading from a script. How's Ryan? I'd asked. A long pause. Too long. He's fine, working a lot. Another pause. His family is coming for Christmas? That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm sure you'll have a lovely time. Yeah. Lovely. The word came out so bitter it made me flinch. Emily, is everything okay? I have to go, Mom. I'll call you later. Click. She never called back. And now sitting in that airport terminal, I realized I should have gotten on a plane that same day. Should have trusted my instincts. Should have known that a mother always knows when her child is in danger. How naive I was. How foolish. The plane landed in Boise after dark. I dragged my suitcase out into the winter night, and the cold hit me like a physical blow. Families were everywhere, hugging and laughing, heading to midnight mass. A father carried his little girl on his shoulders. She held a candy cane and giggled happily. I watched them and felt a lump tighten in my throat. I'd carried Emily like that too, held her hand through streets twinkling with Christmas lights. But now I was alone, pulling a heavy suitcase, stepping into the Idaho night, with an indescribable loneliness crushing my chest. I flagged a taxi. Take me to Meadow Creek, 12th Street, I said, with a voice hoarse from exhaustion. On the way, traffic was slow. The streets were packed with people bundled in coats and scarves heading to church. I stared out the window at warm lights glowing from houses. Church bells rang faintly in the distance, mixed with a choir singing Silent Night somewhere nearby. I smiled, picturing Emily busy in the kitchen, making mashed potatoes the way I'd taught her. But that smile felt forced. Fake. Because the bad feeling in my gut kept growing. When the car stopped at an intersection, I glanced outside and spotted a group of police officers directing traffic. Among them, I recognized Jake Thompson. One of my former students from when I taught Taekwondo at the local community center 15 years ago. He stood tall and confident in his police uniform, but still had that same kind smile. I rolled down the window. Jake! He turned, his eyes lit up as he recognized me. Miss Rose, You're back. I smiled, trying to hide my exhaustion. Yeah, just finished training in Seattle. You still working in Boise? Jake nodded. Yep, traffic cop now. You here for Christmas? With family? With Emily, I said, and my heart warmed at the mention of my daughter. But then Jake's face froze. His smile faded completely. A flicker of doubt passed through his eyes like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. A spark of fear ignited in my chest. What's wrong, Jake? Something up with Emily? He shook his head, forcing a smile back onto his face. No, it's nothing, Ms. Rose. Just glad you're back. But his eyes betrayed worry. Real worry. The kind you can't fake. I wanted to press him, but the light turned green. The driver hit the gas, and the car pulled away, leaving Jake watching me from the street, gripping the brim of his cap so tightly his knuckles were white. For the first time in years, I felt genuine fear. 3 years ago, Emily called me with the most exciting news of her life. Mom, I met someone. Her voice was so bright, so full of hope. His name is Ryan Whitlock. He's a lawyer, smart, successful, and Mom, he treats me like I'm the most important person in the world. I remember smiling so wide my cheeks hurt. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Tell me everything. And she did. Ryan was 32 years old, tall, handsome, worked at a prestigious law firm in downtown Boise. His father, Harold Whitlock, was a retired judge. His mother, Evelyn, came from old money. They lived in a beautiful house in Meadow Creek. Everything about him seemed perfect. He wants to meet you, Mom. Says family is everything to him. Family is everything. Those words should have been a warning, should have made me ask questions. But instead, I felt relieved. My daughter, who'd struggled through her 20s bouncing between jobs and bad relationships, had finally found stability. Finally, found someone who valued her. How wrong I was. How terribly, stupidly wrong. The wedding was small but elegant, held in the Whitlock family garden on a sunny afternoon in May. Emily wore a simple white dress. Her smile was radiant, genuine. I walked her down the aisle, and when I placed her hand in Ryan's, I whispered, "Take care of my girl?" "Always," he'd said, looking me straight in the eye. "I promise." Another lie, another manipulation, but I didn't know that yet. The first year seemed fine. Emily would call every week telling me about her new life. Ryan's family is so welcoming, Mom. They invited us for Sunday dinner. Evelyn taught me her recipe for pot roast. That's wonderful, honey. And Harold, he's so wise. He gives Ryan advice about his career, about life. It's nice being part of such a close family. Part of a close family. The words made me happy. I'd raised Emily mostly alone after her father left when she was 5. I'd always worried she missed having that big family dynamic. Now she had it, or so I thought. The cracks started showing around month 14. Emily called me one Tuesday afternoon, and her voice sounded different, strained. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart, anything." A long pause. "Is it normal for your husband to manage all the money?" I frowned. "What do you mean, manage?" "Ryan says since he makes more money, it makes sense for him to handle our finances. He set up a joint account, but only his name is on the checks. He gives me an allowance for groceries and household stuff." An allowance. The word made my stomach turn. How much? $300 a month. $300. For a grown woman. A married woman. "Emily, that doesn't sound right. You should have access to your own money. Ryan says I'm bad with finances, that I'll spend too much if I have my own account. He says he's protecting us." Protecting. The word abusers always use when they mean controlling. "Sweetheart, that's not protection. That's control." "You don't understand, Mom. Ryan knows what he's doing. His father was a judge. They're smart about money." And there it was. The first sign of gaslighting. The first crack in my daughter's independence. But I didn't push. Didn't want to seem like the overbearing mother. Didn't want to drive her away. So I said, "Okay, honey, as long as you're happy." "I'm happy, Mom." But her voice said otherwise. Month 18. Emily told me she was pregnant. I cried tears of joy. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. I'm going to be a grandmother." "I'm so excited, Mom. Ryan's excited too. Evelyn already started planning the nursery." Everything seemed back on track. Emily's voice had that brightness again, that hope. Then 3 months later, she called me sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. "Mom, I lost the baby." My heart shattered. "Oh, Emily. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I'm coming there right now." "No, don't. Ryan says I just need rest. The doctor says these things happen." "But Emily, you shouldn't be alone." "I'm not alone. Ryan's family is here. Evelyn made soup. They're taking care of me." "They're taking care of me." Words that should have comforted me but instead made my skin crawl. Something in her tone. Something defeated. "Are you sure you don't want me to come?" "I'm sure, Mom. I'll be fine." But she wasn't fine. 6 months later, she got pregnant again, and 3 months after that, she lost that baby too. "It's okay, Mom," she said when she called to tell me. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she'd run out of tears. "The doctor says sometimes it just takes a few tries. A few tries. Like making babies was a recipe you had to perfect. 3rd pregnancy, same result. 4th pregnancy, same result. 4 babies, 4 losses. 4 times my daughter's soul broke into pieces while I stood helpless hundreds of miles away. And through it all, Ryan's family had opinions." Emily told me during one particularly dark phone call. "Evelyn says maybe it's because I'm too stressed, that I need to relax more." "You've been through trauma, Emily. Of course you're stressed." "Harold says some women just aren't meant to have children. That maybe God is trying to tell me something." God is trying to tell me something. As if my daughter's pain was some cosmic lesson. Some divine punishment. "Emily, those people are wrong. What happened to you is not your fault." "I know, Mom." But her voice said she believed them. Said she'd internalized every cruel word they'd spoken. Said she thought she was a failure. And I wasn't there to stop it. Wasn't there to hold her hand and tell her she was enough exactly as she was. I was coaching, training, building other people's strength while my own daughter's was being systematically destroyed. By month 30, Emily stopped calling altogether. I'd reach out and get one-word texts in response. "Fine. Busy. Later." I tried to visit twice, but both times Emily made excuses. "Ryan's working on a big case. The house is being renovated. Maybe next month, Mom." Next month never came. And now, standing on her porch on Christmas Eve, holding my daughter's freezing body in my arms, I finally understood. They hadn't just failed to protect her. They'd actively destroyed her. I pounded on the wooden door, my knocks firm and loud, drowning out jingle bells blaring inside. No one came. I gritted my teeth and banged harder like I wanted to knock the door down in one blow. Emily trembled in my arms. Her body was ice cold. Each breath she took was shallow and weak. Finally, the door swung open. Mrs. Evelyn Whitlock stood there holding a glass of red wine in her hand. Her lips were painted bright red, glossy under the light. The smell of alcohol wafted from her, but her face wore a forced smile trying to seem polite. "Hey, Ms. Rose, what a surprise." Her voice was syrupy but fake, like I was an unwelcome guest. "Why didn't you let us know so we could roll out the red carpet?" I locked eyes with her, not bothering to hide my anger. My voice came out low and dangerous. "Let you know? If I'd let you know, how would I have seen this? What did you do to my daughter?" I held Emily tighter. Each of her faint breaths against my shoulder was a reminder I couldn't let this slide. Wouldn't let this slide. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, glancing at Emily in my arms with a grimace, like she was looking at something annoying, something inconvenient. Emily just wanted some fresh air, she said softly, but her tone was laced with contempt. Don't make a big deal out of it. It's Christmas. Come in. Don't stand out in the cold. Fresh air. While my daughter was practically freezing in a thin blouse, while her lips turned blue and her body shut down. Before I could respond, Ryan appeared behind his mother. His shirt was unbuttoned. He held a bottle of wine. He shot me a defiant look like I was interrupting his party. "Mom, close the door," he said. His tone dripped with arrogance. Chin raised, eyes cold. "Let her stay out there till she gets over it. Who shows up to Christmas dinner acting all fragile to get out of helping?" He let out a mocking chuckle like he'd said something clever. Those words were a knife, not just in my heart, but in Emily's. I felt her body shrink in my arms like she wanted to disappear, wanted to vanish from existence. From the table, Abigail's voice rang out sharp and venomous. "Exactly. A woman who can't even carry a baby to term. What's she worth? Useless." Her laugh cut like a blade, mixing with murmurs from others around the table. Two small children, Emily's nieces, ran out to the porch curious. They looked at Emily in my arms, then giggled, whispering to each other. "Aunt Emily's in trouble." Their innocent voices burned like salt in an open wound. My face flushed with rage. My vision went red. I rammed my shoulder into the door, then kicked it hard. The door flew open, slamming against the wall with a bang that silenced the entire room. Evelyn's wine sloshed, spilling red stains onto the expensive beige rug. The Christmas music stopped abruptly, like someone yanked the speaker's plug. The air turned heavy, suffocating, like all oxygen had been sucked out. I stepped into the center of the living room, still holding Emily. Each step left a trail of melted snow on the hardwood floor. Marks of rage that couldn't be erased. Every eye was on me. Mr. Harold, his face cold and calculating. Evelyn, her fake smile gone, replaced by shock. Abigail, her eyes full of disdain. The rest of the family a mix of shock and annoyance. I felt their hostility in every glance, but I didn't care. Not even a little bit. Carefully, I settled Emily on the cream-colored couch, draping my scarf over her shoulders. Her hands were still icy, still trembling. I knelt, looking into her eyes, trying to give her some of my strength, though inside I was a hurricane of fury and pain. For the first time in 3 years, I felt powerful. Ryan stepped closer. His face was red from wine. His eyes gleamed with arrogance mixed with alcohol-fueled bravado. He lowered his voice, trying to sound intimidating. "You don't get to make a scene in my house, Rose." He emphasized my house like he was reminding me I was an outsider, an intruder, someone who had no right to question what happened under his roof. He stood tall, one hand on his hip. His shirt half unbuttoned in a gesture of contempt, but in his eyes, I caught a flicker of uncertainty. He knew I wasn't someone easily intimidated, knew I'd spent 40 years teaching people how to break bones. I shot to my feet, pointing straight at his face. My voice trembled with fury. "No right!" I snapped. "And you? You think you have the right to throw my daughter out into the cold? To let her nearly freeze to death?" My blood boiled. Every word exploded from my chest. "Is that what you call a husband? Is that what you call family?" I glanced around at the banquet table, the plates still steaming, the wine glasses glinting like they were mocking Emily's suffering, the turkey golden and perfect, the stuffing arranged in decorative bowls. All this abundance while my daughter starved outside. Mr. Harold Whitlock rose slowly from the head of the table, adjusting his suit jacket. His deep voice resonated with authority, the voice of a man who'd spent 30 years as a judge, used to being obeyed. "That's enough, Ms. Rose," he said calmly. "This is a family matter. A woman who can't bear children needs to learn to endure. That's just how it is." His words hit like a sledgehammer, cold, cruel, calculated. I locked eyes with him, seeing the arrogance of a man who thought he controlled everything. Everyone. But today, he'd picked the wrong opponent. I looked at the table where the roasted turkey still wafted its aroma, the cornbread stuffing neatly arranged, the wine sparkling under the lights. Then I looked at Emily, still shivering on the couch, her stomach faintly growling, a silent accusation. I couldn't hold back anymore. My voice erupted sharp and cutting. "So you feast while my daughter sits outside in 32-degree weather? No coat, no food? That's what you call tradition? That's what you call humanity?" Evelyn shrugged. Her smile was icy, like I was blowing things out of proportion, being dramatic. "A woman who can't have kids even if she eats is just a waste," she said softly. Her voice dripped with disdain. She raised her wineglass and took a sip as if to show she didn't care one bit. Not about my feelings, not about Emily's, not about basic human decency. Abigail chimed in from the table, her tone acidic, rubbing salt in the wound. "Your daughter always uses depression as an excuse to avoid work. In all this time, has she ever cooked a decent meal for this family? All she does is lie in bed, whining, dragging everyone down." She shook her head, her eyes full of mockery, like Emily was a burden the whole Whitlock family had to bear, like they were saints for tolerating her existence. Murmurs from relatives around the table grew louder. Some shook their heads, others snickered, agreeing with those venomous words. Every sound, every sidelong glance pierced my chest like another stab. I wanted to flip that fancy table over, wanted to grab that turkey and throw it at their smug faces. But then a faint voice came from the couch. Emily, my little girl, had stirred. She tried to sit up. Her trembling hands gripped the edge of the couch. "I'm so tired," she stammered. Her voice broke, barely audible. "No one understands." Her words were crushed instantly by Ryan's shout. "Enough!" he barked. "Shut up! You've embarrassed me enough already." He stepped toward her, his gaze icy, like he wanted to shatter what little strength she had left. I saw Emily's shoulders slump, her red eyes brimmed with tears. My heart tightened so hard, I thought it would stop beating. I stepped in front of her, ready to do whatever it took, ready to fight every person in that room if necessary. Memories flooded my mind like an avalanche. I remembered the phone calls, Emily sobbing, each time she lost a child, the first, the second, the third, the fourth. With every miscarriage, her soul broke into smaller pieces. She'd been a sweet girl who dreamed of a warm home, family dinners with her husband and kids, laughter around a Christmas tree. But the pain, over and over, had pushed her to the edge of despair, to the edge of giving up entirely. I tried to be there for her, even through long-distance calls. Even when I was coaching tournaments hundreds of miles away, but I never imagined the Whitlock family, the ones I trusted, would treat my daughter like this. Like she was disposable. Like she was nothing. Ryan, my son-in-law, who I once thought was a decent man, now showed his true face. A cruel bully who cast my daughter out into the cold. Who treated her like garbage, like something to be discarded when it stopped serving his purposes. I was on the verge of losing it completely. Through the window, I saw Jake standing silently on the porch. Maybe he'd been patrolling the neighborhood. His hard gaze and clenched fist showed he'd heard everything, witnessed this cruelty firsthand. I gave him a slight nod, signaling him not to step in just yet. But inside his presence was a ray of hope. I knew I wasn't alone, knew I had a witness. Someone who knew the truth. Ryan took another step, pointing at me, dropping the mask of politeness completely. "I'm warning you, this is my house," he said. "Stay out of it or things will get worse." He smirked, convinced I'd back down, convinced the Whitlock family's power and influence would make me retreat. He was wrong. Dead wrong. I clenched my fists. My knuckles cracked. I felt all the rage I'd bottled up in my life explode in that moment. 40 years of discipline, 40 years of teaching restraint and control. Gone. The air in the room was so thick, It felt like a single spark could set it all ablaze. I locked eyes with Ryan, my voice low but sharp as a knife. You think you can threaten me? You think you can keep hurting my daughter without paying a price? I paused, letting the words sink in. You're wrong, Ryan. I'm not letting this go. I turned to the whole Whitlock family, from Mr. Harold's cold stare, to Evelyn's faint smirk, to Abigail's disdainful glare. All of you, I said. My voice echoed in the silent room. You're going to pay for what you did to Emily. The room fell into terrifying silence, like the air had been sucked out, leaving only thick tension ready to explode. I placed my hand on Emily's shoulder, feeling her frail frame under the scarf. My voice steady and unwavering. This isn't a private matter anymore. This is domestic abuse. My words landed like a stone in a still lake, rippling through everyone in the room. Evelyn, still holding her wine glass, let out a mocking laugh, swirling it like she was enjoying a joke. Abuse? She said. Her tone dripped with sarcasm and arrogance. We're just teaching her place, Rose. You should thank us for putting up with her this long. Ryan stepped closer, his eyes red from alcohol and rage. He spat his words like he was chewing each one. She fakes depression, fakes pain to do nothing. No one's hitting her. We're just sick of her uselessness. He paused, staring at me with a twisted smile. Teach your daughter again, Rose? Nobody loses 4 pregnancies in a row. Maybe she did it on purpose. Those words were a razor blade. They didn't just cut my heart. They tore open Emily's unhealed wounds. I heard her breath catch, like she'd been punched in the chest. 4 miscarriages. 4 times she called me sobbing, her voice broken, saying she'd lost the children she could never hold. And now Ryan dared to stand in front of me and say she'd done it on purpose. I clenched my fist so hard my nails dug into my palm. Blood rushed to my face. He'd crossed a line I couldn't forgive. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket. My hand shook, but I quickly dialed 911. I'm calling the cops, I said, my voice cold as ice, though inside I was a hurricane. A report will be filed. You'll answer to the law. I emphasized each word, making sure everyone knew I wasn't bluffing, wasn't playing games. Ryan froze. The wine bottle slipped from his hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor. Red wine stained the expensive rug. Panic flashed in his eyes, though he tried to regain his air of superiority. You wouldn't dare! He shouted. But his voice wavered, like he hadn't expected me to go this far. Mr. Harold, who'd been watching with a cold expression, stepped forward, adjusting his tie. His deep, gravelly voice boomed with authority. You have no idea who you're challenging, Rose, he said. I've spent my life on the judge's bench. I've seen the worst this world has to offer. You think a phone call will make us tremble? His eyes were sharp as knives, reminding me the Whitlock family wasn't easily shaken, wasn't intimidated by threats. But I didn't back down, didn't flinch. I'd seen my daughter shivering in the cold. Nothing, not even Mr. Harold's power, would silence me now. Abigail from the table crossed her arms, let out a mocking smile. Go ahead, make the call, Ms. Rose, she said, her tone taunting. Let's see who they believe. A crazy old lady or a respected family like ours? You think the police will side with you? Her venomous laugh rang out. Confident I'd fail. Confident their influence would protect them. Emily, still on the couch, tugged at my sleeve, her voice trembling in a whisper. Mom, please don't do it. I just want peace. Her red eyes, full of fear, seemed to say she was terrified. Terrified things would get worse. Terrified of more humiliation piling on. I looked at her, my heart aching. I knew she was scared. Scared of the Whitlocks' retaliation. But I also knew if I stopped now, Emily would be trapped in this pain forever. I squeezed her hand tightly, trying to pass her some of my courage. You don't have to be afraid, I said softly but firmly. I'll protect you. I promise. The 911 operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? My daughter has been abused, neglected, left outside in freezing temperatures while her husband's family celebrated inside. I need police at 847 Meadow Creek Drive immediately. Ma'am, can you tell me your daughter's condition? She's hypothermic. Shaking. She needs medical attention now. Officers are on their way. Stay on the line. I kept the phone to my ear, staring down the Whitlock family, every single one of them. Mr. Harold's face turned red. You've made a terrible mistake, Rose. A terrible mistake. Evelyn slammed her wine glass on the table. You're going to regret this. Ryan lunged toward me, but Jake burst through the door, his hand on his radio, his police uniform making everyone freeze. Step back, Mr. Whitlock, Jake said firmly. His voice carried authority, the authority of law. Ryan stopped in his tracks, his face twisted with rage, but he knew he couldn't touch me now. Not with a cop standing between us. Within 10 minutes, 3 more police cars pulled up. Officers entered the house. Paramedics rushed to Emily, checking her temperature, wrapping her in thermal blankets. Her body temperature is 94 degrees, one paramedic said. She's hypothermic. We need to get her to the hospital. They lifted Emily onto a stretcher. I held her hand the whole time. You're going to be okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. Jake approached me. Ms. Rose, I witnessed everything. I heard what they said. I'll testify. I nodded, grateful beyond words. The officers began taking statements. Mr. Harold tried to use his connections, calling someone on his phone. But it didn't matter. The evidence was clear. Emily's condition spoke for itself. They took Emily to St. Luke's Hospital downtown. I rode in the ambulance, holding her hand, watching monitors beep, watching her vitals slowly stabilize. At the hospital, they admitted her for observation. Treated her for hypothermia. A doctor came to speak with me in the waiting room. Your daughter is stable now, Dr. Sarah Chen said. She was young, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes. But Ms. Mitchell, I need to be honest with you. Emily is severely malnourished. She weighs 98 pounds. For someone her height, that's dangerously underweight. My heart sank. What are you saying? I'm saying this wasn't just tonight. Your daughter has been neglected for a long time, possibly months. She shows signs of chronic stress, severe depression, and prolonged malnutrition. Tears streamed down my face. Can I see her? Of course. Room 304. I walked down the sterile hospital corridor. My legs felt heavy. When I entered Emily's room, she was awake, staring at the ceiling, IVs in her arm, monitors beeping softly. Mom, she whispered when she saw me. I rushed to her side, took her hand. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I'm sorry, she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was so ashamed. Ashamed? Emily, you have nothing to be ashamed of. I couldn't have babies, Mom. 4 times I tried. 4 times I failed. Ryan said I was useless. His family said I was a waste. And I started to believe them. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Listen to me, Emily. Listen carefully. You are not useless. You are not a waste. What happened to you was not your fault. Do you hear me? She nodded weakly. Ryan said if I told anyone they'd take me away. Put me in a hospital. Say I was crazy. Classic abuser tactics. Isolate the victim. Make them think seeking help will make things worse. Emily, you're not crazy. You're traumatized. There's a difference. Over the next few days, Emily stayed in the hospital recovering. I never left her side. Jake visited, bringing updates on the case. Ms. Rose, the DA wants to press charges, he told me on day 3. Neglect, domestic abuse, endangerment, the medical evidence is damning. 2 months later, the preliminary hearing arrived. But before we ever reached the courtroom, something happened that changed everything. Emily had been staying with me in a small apartment I'd rented near the hospital. She was gaining weight slowly, attending therapy twice a week. But she was quiet. Too quiet. like she was still trapped in that house, even though we'd left it behind. One morning, she sat at the kitchen table staring at her coffee. "Mom, I need to see them." I looked up from my toast. "See who, sweetheart?" "The Whitlocks, all of them. I need to say what I should have said years ago." My stomach tightened. "Emily, you don't owe them anything, not even words." "I know, but I owe myself this." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in years, I saw fire there. Real fire. Not the broken girl on the porch. Not the victim in the hospital bed. My daughter was coming back. I made the call. Through lawyers, we arranged a mediation session before the trial. The Whitlocks' attorney saw it as an opportunity to negotiate. To make this go away quietly. They had no idea what was coming. We met at a conference room in a downtown law office. Sterile, white walls, a long table. Ryan sat on one side, his father next to him, stone-faced. Evelyn was there too, her red lipstick perfect, but her eyes cold. Abigail sat at the end, arms crossed. Their lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit, tried to control the room immediately. "Let's keep this civil. We're here to discuss a settlement that benefits everyone." Emily sat across from them. I was beside her. She'd dressed carefully that morning. A blue sweater I'd bought her. Her hair pulled back. She looked small, but her spine was straight. Ryan wouldn't even look at her. Mr. Harold stared her down like she was on trial, not them. Evelyn sipped water like she was bored. The lawyer slid papers across the table. "The Whitlock family is prepared to offer a settlement of $50,000 in exchange for dropping all criminal charges and signing an NDA. $50,000. Like that could buy back 3 years of torture, 4 dead babies, a life nearly destroyed." I started to speak, but Emily put her hand on my arm. "No, Mom. Let me." She stood up slowly. The room went quiet. Ryan finally looked at her, his expression annoyed like she was wasting his time. Emily's voice was soft at first, but it grew stronger with every word. "I'm not here for your money. I'm here to tell you exactly who you are. Because for 3 years you convinced me I was nothing. Worthless. A failure. And I believed you." She looked directly at Ryan. "You told me I killed our babies. That I did it on purpose. That I was too weak, too broken, too useless to be a mother. You gave me $300 a month and called it generosity. You locked me out of my own life and called it protection." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Emily, that's not—" "I'm not finished." Her voice cut like steel. Ryan's mouth snapped shut. She turned to Evelyn. "You told me a woman who can't have children isn't worth feeding. You watched me starve and called it teaching me my place. You put me outside in the freezing cold and laughed about it over champagne." Evelyn's face flushed, but she said nothing. Emily looked at Harold. "And you, a judge, a man who spent his whole life supposedly upholding justice. You told me God was punishing me, that some women aren't meant to have children. You used your authority, your position, to make me feel like I deserved every bit of pain they gave me." Harold's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Finally, Emily turned to Abigail. "You called me useless in front of your children, taught them it's okay to mock someone's suffering, to laugh at someone's trauma. You're raising the next generation of bullies, and you're proud of it." Abigail's face went red. "How dare you! How dare I?" Emily's voice rose. "How dare you! All of you! You took a grieving woman and broke her down piece by piece. You isolated me, starved me, froze me, and when my mother came to save me, you called her crazy. You called the police a joke. You thought your money and your name would protect you." She leaned forward, her hands flat on the table. "But here's what you didn't count on. I survived. And now the whole world knows what you are. Not a respected family, not pillars of the community. Abusers, criminals, cowards who gang up on one woman because it makes you feel powerful." The lawyer tried to interrupt. "Ms. Whitlock, this isn't productive. My name is Emily Mitchell. she snapped. "I'm taking back my name, and I'm not signing anything. You're going to trial. Every text message, every medical record, every witness statement, it's all going public. And when you're convicted, when your father loses everything, when your family name becomes synonymous with abuse, I want you to remember this moment. Because this is the moment you lost." She grabbed her coat, looked at me. "Let's go, Mom." We walked out of that conference room, and I've never been prouder in my entire life. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented everything. Medical experts testified about Emily's malnutrition and hypothermia. Jake testified about what he witnessed that night. I testified about the years of phone calls watching my daughter disappear. And Emily testified. She told the jury everything: the financial control, the verbal abuse, the blame for her miscarriages, the neglect, the night she was left outside to freeze. The defense tried to paint her as mentally unstable, as a liar seeking revenge and money, but the evidence was overwhelming. Ryan was convicted on all counts, 4 years in prison. Mr. Harold wasn't criminally charged, but the publicity destroyed him. 3 ethics complaints were filed related to cases he'd presided over. Evidence emerged that he'd used his position to intimidate witnesses in other family matters. His legacy crumbled. His name was removed from the courthouse plaque. Evelyn and Abigail faced civil suits. Emily was awarded the house in Meadow Creek in the divorce settlement, plus a significant portion of Ryan's assets. She sold that house immediately, said she never wanted to see it again. But here's the part that mattered most. 6 months after the trial, Emily and I were having breakfast in our small rental house when she said something I'll never forget. "Mom, I think I'm ready to forgive myself." "For what, baby?" "For staying so long. For believing them. For not fighting back sooner." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Emily, you survived. That was the fight. You stayed alive long enough for help to come. That's not weakness. That's strength." She cried then, but they were different tears. Not the broken sobs I'd heard on the phone for years. These were healing tears. Emily started volunteering at a domestic violence shelter. She shared her story with other women who felt trapped, showed them that escape was possible, that they weren't alone. She didn't date, didn't rush into anything new. She focused on herself. Therapy, rebuilding. Learning who she was outside of the abuse. Jake checked in sometimes, brought coffee, but he understood she needed space, needed time. 1 year after that Christmas Eve, we drove past the old Whitlock house. New owners had moved in, repainted it yellow, put up a swing set in the yard. "It looks different," Emily said quietly. "Everything looks different now," I replied. She smiled. "Yeah, it does." Emily never had children, and that's okay. She built a different kind of life. Meaningful work, real friendships, freedom. She was enough exactly as she was. As for me, I learned that being a mother doesn't end when your child grows up. Sometimes the most important fight comes later, when they need you to kick down doors, to stand between them and the people trying to destroy them. I'd do it all again. Every single moment. Because that night on Christmas Eve, when I found my daughter freezing on that porch, I didn't just save her life. I reminded her she was worth saving. And in the end, that's what changed everything. 3 years later, I got a call from Jake. "Ms. Rose, turn on the news." I switched on the television. A breaking news report showed Mr. Harold Whitlock being led out of his home in handcuffs. A federal investigation had uncovered years of corruption, bribery, evidence tampering. Cases he'd thrown to protect wealthy friends. Ryan's trial had been the thread that unraveled everything. "They got him," Jake said on the phone. "Really got him." I called Emily immediately. "Did you see?" "I saw," she said. Her voice was calm, peaceful. "How do you feel?" She was quiet for a moment. "I feel free, Mom, completely free. Because I don't need his punishment to validate what happened to me anymore. I already took back my life. This is just confirmation that truth wins eventually." That's when I knew she'd truly healed. Emily opened a small bookstore cafe last year. It's called The Phoenix, a place for survivors, for people rebuilding. On the wall is a quote she chose. She was buried, but she was a seed. Every Christmas Eve we light a candle, not for what was lost, but for what was found. Strength, voice, freedom. The Whitlock name is gone now, erased by their own cruelty. But Emily's name, Emily Mitchell, is spoken with respect, with admiration. She's a survivor, a fighter, my daughter, and I'll protect her until my last breath. That's what mothers do. We kick down doors. We fight battles. We never give up. Not ever. Emily's story is fiction, but millions of women live this reality every day. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic abuse, National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233, text START to 88788, thehotline.org. You are not alone. You are worth saving. You deserve to be protected. Share this story. It might save a life. Comment, Survivor, if Rose is the mother we all need. Drop a heart if this story touched you. Thank you.